An underappreciated aspect of how pro players get their frags is through good game sense and communication that allows them to make the right play at the right time. This tends to be more of a factor in reasoning for why a pro was able to get a kill during a situation versus just having good aim mechanics. Having insane aim and flicks is obviously to be desired in a game like Valorant, but what if we told you could get kills without incredible aim? Let's break down 10 simple and effective plays that you can implement into your game that will drastically increase your odds of clutching rounds, getting highlight clips, and ultimately climbing your way up the rankings. Now let's get into it. This first play is all about creating space and openings for your team to attack a site by using abilities. Team Liquid does this perfectly in this round against Guild on Breeze. The A site is a very wide open area with several angles that need to be checked, so running in there raw can prove to be devastating. To clear out the first half of the site, we see Sova using Owl Drone to check for any nearby players. The remaining players on Team Liquid are close to the site entrance so that if a player is spotted out, they can quickly peek and grab the frag with a high success rate. The coast is clear minus the back of site itself, and here's where the site hit from Team Liquid gets interesting. We see a typical Viper wall placed down on the site which provides substantial protection from defenders trying to play retake. But Team Liquid wants even more and outsmarts Guild Esports completely. Scream walks his way up towards the Viper wall, getting ready for a surprise peek which gets set up by a silver dart sent straight towards the back of the site. This baits the defenders to look towards the arrow and shoot it down, which gives Scream the opportunity to push past his own team's Viper wall and grab a pick. It's not over yet though, as Scream goes for another surprise play. He throws the smoke directly on himself to obscure vision and decrease the chance of him getting traded out. Now the smoke can allow Scream to back up to cover, or he can re-aggress and go for another surprise kill, which is exactly what he does. The initial Silver Drone opened up the site and allowed the start of the push, while the Viper Wall and Silver Dart really pushed the site hit to another level by completely surprising the defenders and resulting in 2 picks for a 5 vs 3 situation for relatively free. Think about utilizing simple comms to call for abilities from your team to allow you to make aggressive surprise peeks to drastically increase the amount of picks and space that you create for your team's site takes and site retakes. We've just gone over the first play for the day. Now if you really want to up your gameplay in Valorant to the next level and get the rank you've always dreamed of, then head on over to SkillCapped.com to find even more comprehensive guides that will help you improve at insanely fast rates. For example, we have a complete guide on how you can play like the pros on every single map. If you go through that course, you'll learn a ton of plays and strategies that you never knew before. The link we provided in the description below. Moving on, this second play is incredibly easy to pull off if you give a simple comm to your team on what you want to do, and that is pushing down choke points together to catch enemies off guard. In this clip, we see 3 members of Guild Esports pushing down halls for information on which site the enemy team is likely pushing on. Now this does leave the site fairly open to being taken, as only one player is now defending it, which is Cypher. However, such a push helps gather information as well as provide a surprise factor for taking a site or retaking a site. Particularly when pushing together, you have a much higher chance of successfully flanking the enemy team and catching them off guard. We do see that Cypher on site grabs an initial pick, which is really good, as he focuses on mid since he has a tripwire that is set up there. He drops eventually, but then the flank finally makes his way through cave and Team Liquid gets overwhelmed on site by the 3 flankers not standing a chance at all. The flank fully distracts the attackers and also opens the path for Viper rotating from B to sneak her way in and grab a kill. This situation forces the enemy to have to look backwards and forward versus a typical hold where the enemy team only has to look forward and doesn't have to be worried about the flank. We don't recommend going for these aggressive team pushes every single round, but they are great for catching enemies off guard, switching up the tempo of a round, or to gather information to help ultimately set up your players. Best part is it only takes a simple comm to call a few players to push down an area in which most players will be compliant with. Try this out, especially on your saved rounds, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by some of the rounds that you can win that you had no business winning thanks to these unorthodox pushes. We're going to have 3 clips as is suitable for the third play, which is focused on taking risky plays when the situation is not in your favor. In clutch situations where the enemy has the man advantage, simply playing standard is unlikely to win you the round, as the enemy team will just roll you over. To try to grab an edge, a surprise play needs to be made to increase your odds of winning the round. We're going to start with an absolutely insane play by Draken in a 1 vs 3 situation. An enemy Killjoy ultimate gets thrown on the ground during the retake, in which any typical player would try to run away to cover. However, by running to cover, you give up your location, which makes it easy for the enemy team to hold you and ultimately win the round. So rather than running away, Draken decides to stay tucked in the corner outside a tunnel and await the enemy players to run past him. The enemy team does end up checking this area, as they expected that the typical play would be that Draken runs away. Because of that, they didn't bother to clear Draken's position, and he ends up getting a quick 3k and clutching the round by doing something unexpected. Now to be fair, this round could have easily played out the opposite way, where a player could have gone heaven, taken up more time, and Draken gets hit by the ultimate and he can't move and is eliminated. However, it was already likely that he was going to lose the round if he just played the standard way anyway, so this risk upped the odds of winning drastically. A similar play is made here by Ethan in a 1 vs 2 clutch. The time is nearly run out and Ethan starts planting the spike with about 7 seconds left. However, planting the spike would have meant near certain death as the enemy players were hot on his tail. So instead of going for the plant, he lets it go and hopes that Genji runs straight at him, which is exactly what happens, and he grabs 2 quick kills in succession. Again, a round Ethan had no business winning, but he chose a risky play that paid off. This third example may be a bit contradictory, but it's highly recommended that you peek a position when trying to defend a site in a clutch situation for those surprise picks we've been talking about. Here, 5k from F4Q manages to run down to the A site to plant the spike, and he immediately goes for a peek onto heaven afterwards and gets a lucky frag onto the operator. He then gets his ultimate up, which significantly ups his odds of winning the round, as the enemy now has to push through it. The second player runs into the ultimate quite early and 5k is ready for it, and from there he does a perfect job of switching it up and going back and forth between being in or out of Viper's pit and grabs the third frag. When the odds are not in your favor, try to make a surprise play, whether that be going for a peek that you normally wouldn't do or trying to do the opposite of what a player may typically do given the situation. Going into our fourth play, we have a simple bait and peek that only requires 2 players. Position yourself and another player in different areas where you can spot out a choke point together. In this clip, we have Link holding A main from elbow and Scream holding it from ramp. A straight raw peek from Scream down ramps would be incredibly risky, particularly if several attackers are there, so instead, Scream delays his peek and waits for Link to make first contact to distract them. Once the enemy spots out Link, their attention is diverted to him, in which Scream then goes for a peek and gets a pick for relatively free. Guild Esports was actually expecting this, but with their crosshair towards elbow, they had to make a fast flick over, which made it highly difficult to land the shots onto Scream. This is relatively easy to do and really requires quick communication to your teammate on site on where both of you are going to be positioned, who makes first contact to be the bait, and then who makes second contact to get the kills while the enemy is distracted. Now this does mean the baiting player is at risk of getting chipped down or even killed, particularly when playing with randoms in pubs. This may happen more than we'd like, and we recommend switching it up between who makes first and second contact with players that you don't know to prevent one player getting discouraged that they're just being bait. One of the most unique plays we've seen in the LCQ is from Soldem on Jet to counter Viper's pit. What you can do to scout out the perimeter of Viper's ultimate is by updrafting above it. By doing this, you can check if Viper has left the pit or not, while also putting yourself in a less suspecting position. Combine this with a shotgun like this Judge or Shorty, and you can snag a surprise frag if Viper decides to leave, or you can now pinch the ultimate from 2 angles with your teammate. In this clip, Viper ends up leaving the pit and Soldem gets an easy kill, but regardless if Viper had left or not, this is a great informational play that you can perform to then collapse onto the ultimate. Continuing on, one of the hottest plays done in LCQ is plays emphasizing trigger discipline. When playing a position that tends to get checked less often than so, it's important to be patient and await the ripe opportunity to strike. Especially if there's multiple players heading your way, an early shot could help you get 1 kill, but it's likely you're going to get traded off right after. In this clip, Link and Scream are both on Cat and Scream actually gets picked off, which perfectly sets Link up for the outplay, since most people wouldn't expect another player in the same position. Link holds the corner of Cat, and with the lack of time to push and the fact that a member from Liquid was already eliminated from Cat, Guild Esports neglects checking that corner and goes straight past them. Now he not only lets one player through, but he lets the second player through as well as he hears more coming. Once the third player arrives, that's when Link decides to strike and he gets 2 flank kills for absolutely free, thus turning around completely in its head. A 5 vs 4 suddenly becomes a 3 vs 4 thanks to the patience of Link. The second trigger discipline play comes from Bonker in Guild Esports. If the enemy hasn't spotted you right away, take that extra time to assess your surroundings before pulling the trigger. I know there's always a chance someone might flick over and spot you out, but if you're already deep into enemy territory, the odds of this happening are low and the odds of you making a big brain play by being patient are high. Here, Bonker is on site unspotted, and even though someone is already defusing, he decides not to shoot the diffuser and look for more players around the map first. Once he has found a few additional players, that's when he pulls the trigger, granting him an easy 2 kills. The other 2 kills were also achieved through the enemy being caught off guard, but to a lower degree along with Bonkers just being insane. I know it's always tempting to fire enemies right away, but if you're in a peculiar situation where the enemy hasn't spotted you immediately, wait those extra few seconds that can 1. Give you more information on another player's location, and 2. Help you grab an additional frag or 2 for the round. Getting back into teamwork with good communication and coordination, you can turn a man advantage into a very clutchable round, as players Scream and Navera will showcase in this clip. When in a clutch situation, you want to try to isolate kills as much as you can. Yampy gets picked off but provides information on Raze's location, which initiates the duo's team play. Navera throws a shock dart at Raze, forcing her to go for a peek, as there's a risk that if she stays, another shock dart would come at her. This allows Scream to grab the initial frag. It's still a 2 vs 4 situation though, and the first mission to achieve the clutch from here is to clear the site and any close by choke points before going into the likely A-long positions. Scream clears up Garage and the middle of sight, catching Omen off guard, and Navera does the smart play of holding the spawn flank, knowing that Cypher was still alive and likely ratting. This comes more down to reading the enemy. If you paid attention to a player before and know that they always like to lurk and flank, you always want to check your back. Particularly Sentinel players will likely try to do this, so make sure you check the flank if they're alive. With the two brothers each clearing their respective parts of the site, is now 2 versus 2, and based on the picks they've gotten, the likely positions of the remaining players are either deep in Garage or A long. The spike isn't actually planted well for either of these positions, so this final play for the clutch comes down to trusting your teammate and having their back. Navera holds the defuse while Scream plays as a distraction to delay time. This doesn't mean to fully peek a choke point, but to jiggle around it, fire a few bullets, use any remaining abilities, anything that will hold the enemies back while keeping yourself alive as long as possible so your teammate can continue defusing the spike. This clutch may seem complex at first, but it really came down to trusting your teammate, communicating quickly and effectively what each player wants to do, and then committing to the play that you guys had in mind. Simple comms like telling your teammate to hold the defuse while you distract, or that you're going to watch flank while the other player clears the site, can go a long way in helping get those necessary picks to make a clutch happen. We're going back to Soldum showcasing how much of a menace Jet can be with her abilities. Most commonly, Jet has her dash that players will use to help her get out of sticky situations, but her smokes can also be used to confuse enemies and put yourself in a surprise position to grab additional frags. In this clip, Soldum grabs the initial aggressive op pick, but the play starts after this shot. He throws a smoke down on himself to make it appear as if he had run away, which is what most players would have expected. Instead, he stays and hides behind the smoke, which made it difficult for Paper Rex to fully know where he went. After Paper Rex fired a few bullets into the smoke and missed, Soldum then drops down with the shorty and grabs another surprise frag before now dashing away into safety and throwing another smoke to distort the enemy's vision and idea of where he ran off to. He goes even further for the highlight reel and goes for additional peek and even takes out Jet's knives to go for a jumping right click kill, which would have gave him almost 3 to 4 kills by himself. Soldum did have a teammate that stole a frag, and then the off peeks afterwards were honestly quite risky, but the mobility and use of smokes to keep Jet a slippery target is what allows Soldum to snag more frags than he should have before he fell down. Particularly the smoke utilization was perfect here to allow Soldum to survive for so long and go for more in a situation where he likely would have gotten one and immediately gotten traded afterwards. Players always remember the dash, but don't forget about the smokes and Jet's jumping accuracy with her knives that are crucial to making her a hard target to hit. We're coming into our last few plays, and this next one is all about going for surprise aggression on eco rounds. In these sorts of rounds, playing standard is unlikely to get you the win. For example, on the defender side, trying to play a typical passive setup like 2A, 1 mid, 2B will likely get you killed as the attackers will just charge in as a group, and with weaker weapons and utility, they'll isolate you out and you're dead. Instead, trying to push forward with multiple players or go for a peek that normally wasn't done throughout the game is the better play. Paper Rex's Reyna goes for a surprise peek down middle on tube and gets the 1-for-1 trade, which is huge, but the real play here is the aggressive B push by the team. Viper's wall is placed down B main, which denies attackers map control and allows 3 players to push through and get into surprise angles. Once the wall goes down, the attackers are met with multiple off angles and players pushing through, which catches Jet off guard. The 3 players B and 1 player middle then charge into attacker spawn together, going for multiple duels at once. Essentially, a slaughter of duels happen together and Paper Rex ends up overwhelming the attackers and winning out. Now again, this sort of play could have easily gone into the attacker's favor and honestly is unlikely to fully work out most of the time, but doing something unorthodox like pushing it down as a team or doing something as a unit drastically increases your odds of winning an eco round versus just playing normally where your team is likely to just get picked off one by one. Pushing together is one example, with another option being stacking a site on defender side and gambling that the attackers will go there. Point being, try plays that are out of the norm on your eco rounds. Last but not least, an underrated play that can be incredibly annoying for enemies to deal with is using Killjoys Turret as a distraction during your peaks. This followed by an unexpected re-aggression by Scream results in a fabulous 3k. Killjoys Turret spots out a player in garage and starts firing. Scream then positions himself next to the turret so that when the attackers re-peek to try to remove the turret, they're met by the headshot machine himself and are killed off. It's not the smoothest kill as he was more towards the left of the turret and therefore saw the player later, but the peek ends up being good still as the turret slows down the enemy's movement, thus putting Scream at an advantage to win the fight and dismiss to safety. This is the big part of the play that we want you to focus on, as Killjoy's Turret can be even more annoying than it already is if you combine it with a perfectly timed peek while the enemies are trying to remove it. We want to add that with the dismiss from Scream, the enemy is suspecting that he's backed away and therefore they try to revive their teammate. That's what normally would be done, but with a slippery agent like Reyna, you can do more with her dismisses still being up. Scream knows that a revive is potentially going to happen, so he goes in again knowing that Sage probably won't have a gun up. There's definitely more players than Scream was expecting, but he achieves the goal of this push, which is getting another kill off an unsuspecting peek and then dismissing out. To make plays like this possible, always think about what the enemy thinks you're going to do, and if you do the opposite, you'll likely be able to catch off a few extra players. That's all we have for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind: helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. Good luck out there.